So, hi, we are live and welcome to today's live stream, everyone. So, this is our first live stream about life after your studies. I'm Linnea and I work at the Swedish Institute, and we are so proud and happy that today we have two of our amazing alumni with us as speakers. So it's Angelina and Raghu, and they will share their personal stories about how they started their career in Sweden after graduating from university. So we will start with these presentations, and after that, we will open up the chat for any questions. So if you have any questions about life after your studies or working in Sweden, think of it now, prepared already, and write it in the chat, and we will bring it up after they've spoken about their personal stories. I want to already now add that we will unfortunately not be able to answer any questions relating to visas or work permits. And this is because we simply do not have the expertise with us here today. I have some basic information, and then I'm happy to share with you if there's questions about it. But otherwise, we will pass those questions on to another seminar that we have coming up on 26th of April. And that is together with the Swedish Agency for Migration, and let those guys handle those questions instead. But yes, without further ado, I will leave the virtual floor to Angelina, who is originally from Singapore, and she came to Sweden to study at University of Lund and University of Borås. And right after her studies, she got an internship at IKEA, which turned into a job where she now works as a communications business partner. And yeah, please, Angelina, go ahead.
Thank you, Linnea, for having me, and I'm very excited to be here. My name is Angelina, and I come from Singapore, a tropical sunny island with summer all year round. And you must be thinking, why am I doing in Sweden? It's cold and dark all the time. But I must say that I have been in Sweden since 2010. So about 10 years in Sweden. I first came to Sweden. I did my studies in Lund in 2011. So it's been a while, but I can say that after my studies and after I graduated, I had a hard time finding jobs in Sweden, and it's due to a lot of different factors. I think the economic situation is not very good, and it was actually very high unemployment rate in Sweden at the time as well. So I tried for a year. I didn't get anything job-wise, so I moved back home to my home country. And then I worked for a year back home, and then I decided that I want to do something different. This is not what I want, and then I just follow what I want to study, which I need to study textiles. And I came back to Sweden in 2000 and I think around 2015. So there is where I started my second studies and masters in textiles in Borås. And then during the studies, I need to do an internship. And I happened to get an internship at IKEA, and that's how I ended up at IKEA. But getting to the internship part, I come to Sweden without any context, without any, you can say, professional network. So I find it really hard to find something, because there's a saying in Sweden that, it's not what you know, but who you know. So I struggle with not having a professional network in the beginning, and I think that I did the old-fashioned way, knocking on every doors until someone gave me an opportunity, or any opportunity, to do anything, thesis or internship or any kind of graduate program. So, but in a way, I'm glad, and I'm very happy that I ended up at IKEA, and I've been at IKEA for more than 6 years now, working within communications. And today I work in communications that is from the supply, and I work across different topics. So from production, in suppliers, working with material innovation, which is my passion, and responsible sourcing as well, which is very much connected to sustainability, and this is something that I also have a big passion for. So that is what I'm doing today, and working at IKEA or a Swedish company. Cultures and values is really important. So and I really like the idea of togetherness, that we are all, we can be open, transparent, diverse in a diverse environment. So, and that's where I am today.
Very great to hear. So, from Singapore to this little tiny village in Sweden, it's really an amazing journey you have done. And yes, as I said, we will leave the questions till the end. So, I will actually hand over to Ragu now. So, he's from India and studied at Stockholm School of Economics. And since then, he worked at Ericsson, but actually just now recently started a new job at OX2, a company which is developing sustainable energy, and he is a strategy manager there. Yes, so please, Raghu, floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. So I came to Sweden in 2014. I'm originally from India. And people always ask me, why did I come to Sweden? And it was mainly for, basically for one reason. I studied bachelor's in chemical engineering in India, and I had a very good friend of mine who actually came to Sweden. Back then, education was free in Sweden. That's why he came over here. And then he told me that he really enjoyed studying here, and the main reason was that it's a very collaborative environment. And I come from a very competitive environment in India. So I didn't even know if I would enjoy this collaborative kind of an environment, because I always studied in India for like getting good grades or to get better scores than someone else rather than enjoying education or anything like that. So when I came to Sweden, I was like quite open-minded that I might like it, I might not like it, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I had like an amazing time studying. My friends were so helpful when I had to look for a job, or in the beginning when I was trying to learn how Swedish culture is. So they held my hand a lot and showed me how it's done, and that helped me a lot, and that also made me want to stay, because I felt like I was actually studying because I wanted to study. I was enjoying the courses, getting to learn a lot, and also really having a great time with my friends. So then I decided to stay in Sweden, and I found a job at Ericsson. I'll talk a bit about how I found the job in just a bit. But then at Ericsson, I worked for about 5 years in this internal management consulting team. And yeah, it was super nice. Basically similar to McKinsey or Bain, but inside Ericsson, and I got the opportunity to work with a lot of senior executives on really cool projects, like Ericsson's vision, Ericsson's growth strategy, different business area strategies, some NDA topics, etc. So it was super fun, and I got to learn a lot. But over time, I also felt like I wanted to do more in the direction of improving society, and that's when I started looking for jobs in sustainability, renewable energy, green tech, those kinds of things. And then I found a job at Ox2. Um, and now I'm working at Ox2 as a strategy manager. It's just been 1 week actually, but it's been super nice. It's been super motivating, and everything I've learned, both working at or studying at Stockholm School of Economics and working at Ericsson as a management consultant, I've really got to already. I feel I can use that in this new job and start having some real impact. So I'm super happy about that. So going back to how I found the job at Ericsson, I was studying my master's, and then in our university, and I think it's the case in a lot of good universities in Sweden, is that you have a lot of career fairs, and also you have companies coming, inviting students for some events. And then in those events, I used to try and network. As Angelina was also saying, networking is super important. So in those events, I managed to make a really good impact in the with the Ericsson employees who were there to recruit students. And then they invited me for an interview, and then there were 6 interviews actually. So it was quite intense, but I had to practice a lot for those interviews, and I practiced a lot with my friends from university who were also applying for similar types of jobs. So then I was able to find the job at Ericsson. Um, yeah, I don't know Swedish. I didn't know Swedish then, but I kind of understand a little bit, but I can't speak or in any business context have any meaningful dialogue. So, but culturally, I feel I fit in, or I have a good cultural acumen for what is Swedish and how people behave in this society. So when I got my job at Ox2, it was purely because people who had worked with me recommended to the hiring manager. Um, so I was able to, yeah, basically find this. Someone asked me to apply for the job. Um, Basically, the hiring manager was able to reach out to me because someone had already recommended to him that I'm good at my job, or I could be an interesting candidate, etc. So even the second job was a lot because of networking, though I didn't explicitly go around. Um, yeah, networking for the sake of the job. It was more like uh, word of mouth, uh, that people who had worked with me had recommended me to someone else. So that's a bit about me and how I found my jobs, and very, very happy to be here and answer your questions and help you out a little bit. That's it from me, Linnea.
Thank you so much, Raghu. And we have some questions coming in from the chat, which is amazing to see. But I just want to start with three of the most common questions that we see in general. So, Angelina, in your opinion, what do you think? Is it easy to get a job in Sweden?
I would say yes and no. Yes, if you have already a strong network, professional network, and then maybe if also yes, if you're flexible. For instance, are you willing to relocate to another town, another city? Are you willing to commute? So the more flexible you are, of course, the easier it is to find a job. And know in a sense that there is, I find it with my first experience after graduating from Sweden, it's the economic situation plays an important part. For instance, now looking at our situation now, political instability and pandemic, many companies may like to be, how to say, they would like to be more conservative when it comes to recruitment, or they might be, there would be more limited jobs available. So in that sense, I would say that it can be a bit challenging if depending on the economic situation, as well as the fact that if you are in a city, there can be a lot of competition applying for the same jobs. So without the word of mouth or recommendation from someone already, in the network, it can be a little bit difficult. So, but it's not impossible. So I would say a bit of yes and no.
Thank you. Raghu, do you have any comments to that?
Yeah, I mean, I also agree with Angelina. Like my experience in the Swedish job market has been really, really good. Or it was, yeah, how do I say, very more on the easy side. I had to put an effort, but at least I felt like it wasn't unfair or unjust that I was putting a lot of effort but not getting any feedback or opportunities. But I think that's also because I went to a really good university, and yeah, that I think Stockholm School of Economics has a really good name in the business, what do you say, sectors. But my partner, she came to Sweden about a year back during the pandemic, and then she found it more, how Angelina was saying, was quite difficult. There were not so many jobs. And then, yeah, having to network, not knowing the language, all of those were challenges. I mean, she found a job and she's quite happy with it, but it took some more effort than, so she got a lot of these. She was very disappointed when she had a lot of rejections, not getting feedback, difficulty in just having like a good network to get a lot of opportunities in the funnel. All of that was happening for a few months, and then I think over time she learned how the system works, and also the job market improved a bit. So we started lot more jobs coming in, and then she was able to find something. and crack the interviews. So I think it can be, it's not such an easy answer. Yeah, it depends really on your experience, your attitude, and then the market situation. All of those things play together.
So both easy and both hard. Answer. But I get what you mean. You need to probably have a little bit of luck, as usual, and also it's quite different in different parts of Sweden and parts and different branches and areas, study fields, and so on. And another really common question that we get is, do you need to speak Swedish to work in Sweden?
Maybe I can go first on this one.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a good example of the word need in this sentence because I don't know Swedish, and my partner, she also doesn't know Swedish. But so it is possible to find a job, but my recommendation would be very much to learn the language, not just for learning the language to be able to speak in business context and stuff, but also understanding the culture and fitting in and being a bit more in tune with what people say and why people are saying and way the people are behaving and understanding society. I mean, both myself and my partner, we can apply to companies like IKEA, Ericsson, H&M, Electrolux, which are global companies, and Ox too. A lot of Swedish startups are also very welcoming to not knowing English, or not knowing Swedish. But I think you miss out on like a lot of jobs require Swedish as well. So those opportunities are not super open. Of course, if you're like really, really good and you are, have a lot of experience working in Sweden, then I think people are willing to be a bit flexible because they think you're valuable to the company and stuff like that. But in general, my advice would be that you don't need to speak it. The barriers become a bit higher if you don't speak, and you have to overcome them. But I would recommend that you start learning. Before I came to Sweden in 2014, I actually learned Swedish. So uh, when I came to the university, people were like super surprised, like this Indian guy who's coming to Sweden for the first time is speaking like a little bit of Swedish, and yeah, people were super happy about that. But I haven't learned more than that, unfortunately. Mm.
Yeah. To build on what you said, Ragu, my answer would be no. You do not need to speak Swedish to work in Sweden. I don't, and I haven't learned any Swedish before moving to Sweden as well, so totally new. And working in IKEA, I really don't need to use Swedish at all. I mean, English is our corporate language, and I feel like, I have done SFE before. It's a Swedish for, I think, immigrants, something like this. And it's a very basic Swedish course, but I have not gone further, and I feel like my Swedish got worse the longer I work at IKEA because it's we have not been using it at
Same
all.
here.
And exactly, and I know a lot of my colleagues who have worked for like over a decade, and not knowing any Swedish at all, and not even basic Swedish. So it's, in a way, you do not need to speak Swedish, but it is beneficial to know Swedish, of course, when it comes to, some of the going to groceries, going to the doctors. It could be good to know some basics. So I would also recommend that if you have the time to learn and to know, as I said, the culture as well. So, but it's not a necessity.
Thank you. And I would just like to add that in many workplaces, you do not know Swedish, especially if your competences are very attractive at that workplace. But also the social part might be it might be good to learn some Swedish to not be excluded from some of the social happenings at your workplace. So yes, the advice is really to learn it at least a little bit. Thank you so much for those comments. Do you have 3 advice each for international students who are interested in staying in Sweden to work? Like just in brief.
Yes, I can maybe start. If I were to say 3 tips, I would say that first of all, start building your network from day one. This is something that I did not really actively do when I was a student, and I kind of regret it. If I were able to do things differently, I would start to build my network from day one. And how to do it? You can actually, career fairs. Not just go to the booth, get a name card, but actually talk to the people, get the names, know who they are, build a connection with them, ask them questions. That would be one. Another thing you can do is you can, when there are guest speakers in your classes, in your lectures, connect with them. And actually, that is also how I got my internship. I connect with one of the guest speakers, and just say, and just actually not just one. I connect with every guest speaker. It's like, oh, is there any internship opportunity, or is there any opportunity for TCs? And eventually one of them say yes. But so I would say that build this network and connect with your friends, because I see that a lot of my friends, my course mates from my uni, now that 6 years after graduation, they are all in different sectors, in different positions, and I think that there some of them are recruiting. So build your own network. You never know. Maybe now is not the time for you to be in Sweden, but who knows? A few years down the road, you might want to come visit Sweden or think about working in Sweden. So, say the first thing is build your network from day one. Second thing is start early. So if you want to have, apply for internships or write a thesis or something, don't do it if you know that you're going to have it, do it in April. Don't wait until March to apply. Start early. Start like, in winter, start a couple of months before. Start already knocking on doors, because a lot of time the companies, they need to plan this in their, I don't know, year calendar or something. So start really early in the process when you want to look for graduate programs, internships, or thesis. And the last thing is, just be proactive, and also be, how to say, I know that Swedish is about being humble, and during the interviews, one of the things that I find in my experience, I don't know if it's valid or not, it's just that I feel like if I talk too much and share too much about myself, I am like bragging, which is, in Sweden, it's all about humbleness. But at the other hand, I feel like I'm kind of like not putting myself out there. I could be a little bit more proactive in a way that I could share that, hey, this is what I've done, this is what I deliver, a bit more. Don't be afraid to shine. That's what I meant. Because I know sometimes we hold back. Am I bragging? Is it too much? In thinking about the Swedish culture. So when I didn't realize that when I see how my Swede, when they do interviews, they were like, yes, I have 10 years of experience in this and that. And I was like, but you are early 20s and you have 10 years, but it's household. It's like, do it with the facts. Of course, you're not bragging or anything, but don't be afraid to put yourself out there and to shine. So that's my 3 tips.
Perfect tips. Ragu, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with your, especially third tip. I feel like, especially if you're coming from outside, you tend to take advice about the culture like to heart. So if people say be humble, then yeah, I had the same experience. I had like a super soft CV that I saw a friend of mine, and I was like, what the hell? He's worked like half my time and done like 10 times more things, which is, yeah. So you have to shine a little bit, but also you need to learn to be humble and yeah, be a bit likable and stuff like that. Cool. Yeah, I also agreed with networking. I had some more like maybe a little bit more detail or some more ideas on how to network. So one of the things I used to do is I had a pitch for like an elevator pitch that would get people's attention for why I'm here and what I could add to their organization or something like that. It was like 2 minutes long, so I had prepared this and I would practice it whenever I got the opportunity. And like Angelina was saying, there is never a bad moment to network. So I always used to try to pitch, and over time I improved it. I mean, in the beginning, probably people who are listening to me must have been laughing, like, who is this guy and why is he saying this so not well thought through and prepared sentences. But over time, I of course improved. So that helps. And then another thing is, I think key part of networking is not thinking, especially when you're a student in the beginning, you're new to Sweden, you're always thinking like, what can I get out of it? But I think key part is always thinking, okay, what can I contribute also to the person who I'm networking with? Then people tend to remember you much more. So I would not only think of like, okay, if they are looking for someone who's an architect and has a management degree, then I know a couple of friends who I studied with and try to pitch them or get them connected. So then people are also attracted towards someone who can help them and remember you a bit better. And it's also more fun than going and just thinking like, oh, I really need this job, and I need to network for the sake of finding a job. So I would say those are maybe a couple of add-ons. We talked a bit about learning the language and stuff, and I think I would say more important is to really try to understand the society. I'm not saying you need to become Swedish or be part, not that way, but you really need to understand the people you're going to work with. Try to empathize with them, try to understand why they are weird or or not, or what you have in common, things like that. Because of course, if you want to work and show and have an impact in the interview, it's really good to have a connection and a likable personality, and you're able to connect when you understand people. If you have a very generic stance, like Sweden is just another European country and it's cold, then it's difficult to relate with someone and have an impact, I think. So that would be another tip. I used to watch a lot of TV shows. I had a, like I said, my friends helped me a lot in trying to understand the nuances of Swedish society, and I would always ask questions when I thought something was strange or weird. I think in general, Swedes are also very open to like criticism about their country. So yeah, I used to also think about, okay, why is this not working so well, or what can be improved and stuff. So that would be my, I don't know if there were 2 or 3 tips, but something to add on to Angelina.
Thank you. Very great advice, especially the ones about networking, because we get a lot of questions about networking, and we know that it's important in Sweden to network to get a job. So I think those tips are extremely valuable. So I hope you guys listened to what Angelina and
Oh, I
Raghu
have
had to.
one more thing on
Yeah.
networking. So this used to be my philosophy a bit, because I think you should always try to have uh, when you apply for a job, the person who's reading your CV or your cover letter should already know you before they read the CV or the cover letter. I mean, that is the objective of networking. Then you get into the interview because they know you, not because of what you've written. And that is the kind of relationship or the outcome should be. It shouldn't be that, I mean, of course, over time you mature and become better at networking. So in the beginning, your objective could be that someone shares your phone number. And then over time, it might be that you get invited to apply for a job. But I think ideally you should aim to get like an interview by talking to someone and impressing them in the short time that you get to meet them, rather than, yeah. So we should always aim that the person reading your cover letter or CV just sees your name and says, okay, this person I think is capable to go to the interviews.
And that was actually a nice bridge over to one of the more practical questions that have popped up in the chat. And there's one person asking if you have any advice on how to behave or what to do on an interview in Sweden if you actually get called to an interview.
Should I
Anyone
go
want to start?
first?
Yeah,
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I did anything different from what I would have done. Um, so it's very difficult to answer that. I would say that practice, if you have any Swedish friends, it's great to practice with them. If you don't have Swedish friends, practice with someone who's working in the same field or the same, yeah, similar to the hiring manager, right? So you can, you know, what to expect. And there are a few variables. If you're in a different country, or if you're changing the function, you're changing the type of industry. So I think there are these 3 variables, and how much of this you can practice out of, that's good, right? Then you have lesser things to worry about. So I would say thing that helped me a lot. I used to practice a lot with my friends, and then of course each one gives an opinion and advice, and you have to think which ones to take and which ones to ignore. But over time, I really felt that helped a lot. I had practiced, yeah, I mean, this was like 6 interviews on cases, right? So I had done like 30 practice interviews with different types of friends in at university. So by the time, yeah, I even got like feedback in one of the interviews that you're coming across as too prepared. So uh, maybe that was a bit extreme, but I mean, I don't. I think if you want to put in effort, this is a good place to put in effort, especially if you have an interview call, then you really want to convert it. then you try to practice it. I even found like an online forum where I could find people to interview with who were also applying for the same type of jobs. So yeah, there are ways to practice, I would say. But yeah, that's just one dimension. Anything to add, Angelina?
Yes, to build on what you said, Ragu, I think that you are really spot on when it comes to practicing. Get someone to practice with you. And just to add that, I would also say that get to know the company, what is important to the company. For instance, it could be like the cultures and values that is super important to the company, that is more important than the competence itself. So do some research in that area, and maybe it's also to maybe the leadership qualities is something that I see that a lot in Swedish companies, that they go for people who are a bit more proactive. Maybe you take the lead in some areas, and so highlight those qualities as well. So and keep practicing, of course.
And just now we had a question: how many rounds of interviews are common in Sweden? Do you know that, and especially in the IT industry? Of course, you might not have experience of other fields than your own, but how many
No,
interviews did you go to?
yeah, so management consulting, it's fairly common to have like 6 or so rounds, and they are like case interviews. In the other jobs, so at Ox2, I had 2 serious interviews and 3 like meet and greet. But yeah, I had so or and then in some other companies you meet the like an initial filter from the HR or the people team trying to figure out if you have a good profile. Then you usually have the hiring manager and then maybe the hiring manager's manager. So I think you should account at least for 3 interviews. But people HR is not, yeah, you're more seen if you're like this person matches to what CV you have, right? So it's very basic, I think. But the other 2 rounds are more discussion around what experience you've had, what skills you bring, can you substantiate yourself, what how would you behave in certain situations, and some focus on leadership is usually there, as Angelina was also saying.
Yes, I think I agree with you, Raghu. I think it's on average, I would say that it's around 3 to 4 rounds of interview. Usually, first round with the HR, and then you have the manager, and then you have the manager's manager, something like that. Just in general. But I also been to in another sector, in the energy sector, where I go through a lot more interviews, like 7 rounds, and then you have case studies. You have a lot more to your assignments based. So, and that actually can take a long time, like months as well. So it depends. But I would say on average, 3 to 4 rounds.
So quite a few rounds. That is,
Exactly.
yeah, I agree. From my experience, it's the same. So we have a few questions coming in. I think I'm gonna bump them all together. Someone was wondering what master's program or study fields should you be in to be successful in the job market in Sweden, and if it's hard to get a job within social sciences if you've been studying social sciences, and also how to compete with natives or Swedes that has an education and a background in Sweden. And I can just comment before I give the word to you. I would just comment on that. In the fields of engineering and data and IT, there is a huge lack of competence in Sweden. So those fields are by far easier to get a job in Sweden because we really need talents within IT and developers and so on, and tech. There's a huge gap. So definitely easier to get a job within those fields. And but of course, it's also possible to get a job if you've been studying social sciences. And but do you have any other advice? Like, how do you compete if you have a Swede coming up to you and going to the same interviews? How to shine?
I think being, yourself, and being, coming from outside Sweden, that is already an advantage because you have a diverse background. You bring in different kinds of experiences. So that is already an advantage over the native Swede. For instance, when I was studying textiles in Sweden, we are very good at innovation part of textiles and things. But what we are lacking here is the production side, which a lot of the production facilities took place in other countries in Asia, China, India, spread out in Turkey, some, and they are not so strong at the innovation. So that is where it complements each other. So I would say that it being diverse with a different background where you come from, it's already a strength. So it is that you actually complement, and it does not mean that you have to compete with this with you, rather that you complement each other's differences in different ways. So that is a strength, and I think that yes, so there is be yourself, and I will say that that is a strength.
So
Yeah, I don't have any comments
pinpoint it.
on.
I'm sorry, just so to sum up, so pinpoint that there is an advantage that you are not from
Exactly.
Sweden. You can bring something to the company by coming from outside. Sorry, Ragu.
Yeah, no, I don't remember what I was going to say
I'm
now.
so sorry.
No worries.
Interrupt you.
Yeah.
Okay, if you
Oh
comes to
yeah,
mind.
about social sciences. Of course, I don't know much about finding jobs from social sciences. I mean, in terms of master programs that I hear a lot of people who work with me in more, I would say, business management, then a lot of people have economics degrees, a lot of people have management degrees, and not MBAs as such, masters in management. And then the third thing is industrial engineering. I had never heard of this from India, but it's basically a mix of some core engineering skill like mechanical engineering or computer science engineering together with like masters in more business and administration or management kind of courses. So that's a huge. I see a lot of people with industrial engineering background from KTH or Linköping universities who are also super good to work with. So that's maybe yeah, a tip on some master's programs, at least in the management and business sides.
And I can also say that a lot of Swedish companies, they actually celebrate diversity. So at IKEA, we have like over 53 different nationalities. So, and we work in a very diverse environment. And we actually think that is a strength, that we are different, but then we can bring in so much. So about the, I think you were onto like what kind of studies that could help you, get the job easier. I know that at least in my area that I work in, like the engineering side, junior production engineer is always like in demand. We have, it's not easy to find people in this area. So I think it depends. So just keep a lookout, and it doesn't mean that if you study in this area, you have to work in this area, because I study textiles, I study economics, and in the end, I work with communications. I don't even have a communications background. I do have some marketing here and there, but not, as a main how to say focus. So I think that your career can take shape and change as it goes along.
Okay, great. And thank you so much. We have a few questions about the whole situation after the pandemic. Like, do you know if there is a possibility to work remotely while working at a Swedish company, especially from abroad? Then I guess the question is. Angelina.
Yeah, I can say that during the pandemic we are working from home, most of us, or in fact all of us. But then now, as Sweden has lifted up the restrictions, we are almost back to the office full time. But I know it's still kind of like a hybrid. You don't have to be in office all days, but most of the days you are in the office. And I think we kind of like really appreciate this face-to-face interaction that we really miss. So that is the hybrid way, I would say. And yes, so I think is it improving, and I think that another reason why working in this you want to be based in Sweden. From what I understood, you cannot work remotely from another country, and that is due to tax reasons. So because you work in Sweden, you pay Swedish tax, you are supposed to kind of like work in Sweden and not work in Sweden, get a Swedish salary, and live in another country. So that is something that was brought up during the COVID times, and it's, from my understanding, it's not allowed for tax reason purpose.
Yeah, but I completely agree with you. Overall, now more and more companies are opening up, and then there's some hybrid solution. There are a few companies that started during the pandemic. I'm forgetting the name, but they're especially startups that started during the pandemic, they have job openings where you can work from anywhere in the world. So you don't get a Swedish salary in that sense, and you're hired in some other country, but you can work from wherever in the world, and you would be part of that company and doing the job that you'd be doing. So that is there. I don't think bigger companies like Ericsson have too many roles like that, but maybe they do.
Yeah, I think and that's true. Generally, I don't think it's super common that you can work remotely, like completely from another country because of insurance issues and tax issues and so on. But it exists companies and job openings where it says you can work from anywhere in the world. So just keep your eyes open for that, I guess. But it's hard also for us. We're not representing the whole Sweden, and it's happening right now. So I think it's changing a lot. So.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I think those are the questions we have time for today. I saw some questions about health insurance and permits. So I'm just gonna, in brief, if anyone is wondering how to get a residence permit, you can get a residence permit to apply for jobs and explore possibilities of starting your business in Sweden. But to do so, you need to have applied for a job seeking permit before your residence permit for studies expire. And also, you need to complete your study program. So, meaning that you have to pass all of the mandatory courses. And the length of this residence permit is 12 months. But yes, so for any more personal support and more in depth details about these administrative issues, please head over to our other seminar on the 26th of April. That's called How to Apply for a Residence Permit. So we pass those questions on to our experts at the migration agency, so to speak. Yes, I think that was it for today. I also want to leave you guys with a last tip. If you are looking for a job or another opportunity within the tech sector in Sweden, we have a freshly launched website called Sweden Tech Ecosystem, where you can find information about startups and scale-ups and bigger companies, mostly within tech, so engineering and IT and data. But it's a site where you can find opportunities as a job-seeking person or an investor, or if you want to establish your business here. You can create a profile there, and if this sounds interesting to you, I suggest you do it as early as possible because of the networking issues that we have brought up during this webinar. So the site is techecosystem.startupsweden.com. And this live stream has been recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel, the Study in Sweden YouTube channel. So just head over there if you want to watch it again, or if you want to show one of your friends what has been shared here today. And with that, I will leave you, and we say thank you so much to all of you who have been watching. And of course, a huge thank you to Angelina and Raghu for sharing your experiences and your advice. And we hope to see you another time soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Best of
you.
luck. Bye.
All the best. Yes.